Hi everyone, just a quick video to show you how you should be laying out your answers in tomorrow's S3 exam. For each paper, when you're working through them, obviously you have the hour to open the paper up, try and complete all the answers to it, and then submit your answers through your pictures in the assignments tab. Just to help Mrs. Ronnie and I when we're marking, if you're doing paper one, wee title's always lovely. Paper one and question one. And then hopefully answer your question. You can write down the question if you need to, answer it underneath, and then underline when you're moving on to question two. If, for example, you've answered question one, you move on to question two and you get a bit stuck, leave yourself a gap and move on to question three. And if you chunk up your answers like that, it will just make it easier to mark and give you feedback. Okay, that'd be great. Other thing, just to remind you of the topics that are covered in, that could be covered in the assessment. This is a printout of the file that I've put on Teams a few times. So just taking you through the kind of different areas where you could get asked questions. Working with algebraic expressions, so basically you're multiplying out brackets. Rules of factorising, remember common factor first. If there's no common factor, then it check for a difference of two squares, and then it might be a trinomial. Also down at the bottom there, you'll notice completing the square. So that's when you look at the trinomial you've got, put in a set of brackets where you're kind of half in the middle term, and then remember and subtract the square of the term inside, and tidy up whatever you've got left. So that's algebra. Algebraic fractions, so where you have fractions involving algebra, you could add, subtract, multiply or divide using the normal rules. Also, to simplify algebraic fractions, you might have to factorise. So just be aware of factorising and how that could help you simplify if you can then maybe cancel a bracket off the top and the bottom. For volume, in the formula list you'll have the cylinder, sphere and cone. The sphere, the cone and the pyramid in the formula list. The cylinder's not in the formula list, but it's very like the cone without the fraction. So cylinder's V equals pi r squared h. The sphere, the cone and the pyramid are all in the formula list. Mixed examples, basically if there's more than one shape involved, just remember it might be that you find out the shape of a pyramid and you find out the shape of a sphere and then add them together, stuff like that. Okay. Also watch out for working backwards questions there. So if you have to set up the formula and then work backwards to find the answer. Surds, look out for surds. So simplifying surds, you're thinking your square numbers, breaking them down. You've seen them in the last couple of assignments. You might get asked to rationalise the denominator. Basically, you want to get rid of the root on the bottom of a fraction, so you times by that root over itself. Indices, so remember your laws of indices. If you're multiplying letters together, the powers add. If you're dividing letters, the powers subtract, and then the other rules that are listed there below. Okay, on the posts that have been on the Teams recently, some people have asked about indices questions, so there's a link to a site where you can practice some of them. Gradient, remember your y2 take away y1 over x2 take away x1 formula. So you might get asked to work out the gradient of a line. That might also come into the line of best fit and scatter graphs. Circles, so basically your arc length and sector area, and working backwards obviously would come into that as well. So that was the first unit. The second unit is trigonometry, so your area of a triangle, a half AB sine C. Sine rule, that's one with the fractions, and cosine rule, there's a cosine rule for an angle and for a side, and they're all marked in your formula list. Trickiest bit, I suppose, is selecting which is the rule to use. If it says area, use the area of a triangle. That's simple. If it's something else, like find an angle or find the side, then you have to see if you got enough information to use sine rule, or is it cosine? These are two sides that you know round about the angle. Look out in your diagrams for filling in angles. So if you're copying out the question and your answers, just copy in any missing angles that you can work out just by knowing that the triangle has angles that add up to 180. If it's a bearings question, don't get freaked out by bearings. Calm down. The north line goes straight up and the angles get measured from the north line going clockwise. Fractions and percentages. you might get asked to do a add, subtract, multiply, divide with fractions. Watch out for BODMAS as well in there. Compound interest percentage questions. That's when you're doing something for a certain amount of years. So you're timing a decimal to the power of something. Reversing percentages, that's working back to 100%. So as it went up or down, and you need to work back to 100%. Statistics. Two main questions there. You'll get your semi or quartile range question, which will have comments in it as well. So you need to work out the quartiles, and then the SIQR. Standard deviation. You obviously use your whatever table that you use, whether it be Mrs. Ronnie's version or my own. And then mean and standard deviation questions should be worth a lot of marks for both those two types. The comments are important at the end. So if your mean or median's higher, it means on average that thing's bigger than the other thing. If the semi or quartile range or the standard deviation is lower, it means it's more consistent. Remember, and use the comments, use the context of the question in your comments. Vectors. Vectors we've done quite late on in the course there. So thinking about when you need to maybe add or subtract or multiply a vector, just using the components, the numbers inside. The magnitude is when you get your vector, square all the numbers inside it, add them together and square root that. Vector journeys is when you need to walk from one position in a shape to another, and you just use the vectors that you're aware of within the diagram. 3D coordinates, along, back, up, X, Y, Z, along, back, up. And that's vectors. And that's you. So that's the topics that will be in your S3 exam. Ask questions on Teams if you've got any. Use the files section for revision questions. And just as I said, let Mrs. Ronnie or I know if you need any help. 11 o'clock's kick-off tomorrow, folks. I would urge you to try and be online for between 10 and half 10, just so you can ask any last questions and get any last bits of advice. All right, thank you. Bye.